Welcome to the Say Cheese platform, Rajeshwari. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
All well, all well, all well at our end. It's been a
That's great.
busy start to the year, Rajeshwari. We've launched our mobile app, which is where we are having our conversation. So,
Mm.
lots of action. We have inspirational women like you who come on an almost an everyday basis. And, there's just so much of conversation happening, interesting topics being covered. And, it gives an opportunity for the people on our app and on the website to come and listen in and, know that there is a lot of support for them,
Right.
without the need to actually physically go and meet anybody. And that's the
Mm.
whole aim of our the vision of Sechis, which is to have each other's back and to have
Yes.
professionals like you in the space, to be able to talk to whenever needed. So
Yeah.
lots of action for us. We've been busy.
Congratulations. It sounds like a very good sort of a busy.
Yes, thank you so much.
And
Thank you.
and I have been following the sessions and it's been very insightful and it's just been amazing to hear the experts speak. It's been lovely.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's get started, Rajeshwari. I have a little short bio for you, which is I'd love to read out and get people to know you better, and then we can get into
Sure.
our conversation. So,
Yeah.
Rajeshwari is a transitions coach with 14 years' experience in the corporate HR people function, spanning areas like performance coaching, behavioral training, and cross geo people engagement. Currently working as an independent coach, Rajeshwari is passionate about her transitions coaching work in supporting women as they navigate life's crucial changes such as new motherhood, role change, promotion, or re entry into the workforce. As an executive coach, you work with managers and organizations and help them take a coach oriented mindset to the leadership. With an MBA in HR and a master's in psychology, you're also a certified NLP Master Practitioner. You currently hold a PCC credential from ICF and a Richard Bandler Certified Advanced Diploma in NLP coaching. You're also a certified emotional intelligence coach and a PQ coach certified by Positive Intelligence Incorporation. A mother of three children, Rajeshwari is a firm believer in balance, sustainable living, and pursuing a life of meaning. In your free time, you love reading, learning the keyboard, and pursuing your wellness goals. That's a very action packed but balanced life, I have to say. So, what is transition? There's a lot of transition.
Okay.
You're a transition coach, studied this area
Fine.
very well, and I see a lot of emphasis on transition. So, can you tell
Can
us
you
more
hear
about
me?
it to begin with?
Sorry, I lost you
Yes,
for a
I
bit
think
there.
no worries, no, Rajeshwari. I can repeat. I said there's a lot of transitions in your bio, right? There's a lot of emphasis on you being a coach. So, what exactly is transitions? Can you tell us more about it?
Sure, absolutely. So, a transition is any change that we go through, either personally or professionally, right? But having said that, it's a little different from change in that, change is something that happens outside of me, it's external. It's
Yeah.
on the other hand, is internal, it's psychological, and it's a process, right? So something happens outside, but I go through this huge emotional, psychological process of adjusting to that external change. So that
Right.
is what a transition is, right? The research is telling us that how well a transition is managed in that case pretty much determines the kind of success or fulfillment or joy that we find in subsequent phases. It's important to manage a transition very well, even if it is a transition of your own choosing, even if it is a voluntary transition, a choice that you've made to change jobs or to leave a relationship or to have a baby. All of those transitions call for additional kind of emotional energy from our
Yeah.
end, and that process has to be managed, right?
Right.
And all the more when it comes to an involuntary transition, right? A
Yeah.
transition or a change which is kind of imposed on me, like
Yeah.
somebody walks out of you on a relationship, you've been
Yeah.
let go in a job, you've lost somebody very close to you in COVID. How
Yeah.
much more important how well does that transition have to be managed, right? And then there are also collective transitions, right, that we go through as groups, as families, as societies, as nations. Like, look at COVID today. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
biggest collective transition
Yeah.
that this entire world, right, all 7.7 billion of us are learning, or hopefully have learned. How do we work and learn and live in a new normal? How do we
Correct.
communicate and socialize in a new normal? So that's the collective transition piece. And I think the hardest transitions that people face, that are difficult to navigate, are those that are personal and involuntary, right?
Yeah.
Personal because you feel so alone. There's this loneliness that you're combating.
Yeah.
Involuntary because you have control over it, right? There's this
Yeah.
fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And all transitions, whether they're voluntary, involuntary, they involve grief in some form or the other. So there's not necessarily, it doesn't always have to be the loss of a person, but there is, it's either loss of a relationship, or loss of financial freedom, or loss of intimacy, or a loss of a lifestyle or income, loss of identity, right? I used to be a manager, I was a mom. Those identity level transitions are extremely.
Okay, very beautifully explained. I mean, it's very well encapsulated what transitions are. I mean, I you spoke about it beautifully, and the fact that it does involve certain kind of grief, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
involuntary or even voluntary sometimes. So tell me something,
Yes.
Rajeshwari. Is there a process to these transitions? Do we know exactly the steps, or the fact that maybe we might be undergoing one, or we are not undergoing one, or what to expect if something like that happens?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Divya. So, the research has told us, whether it's Van Gennep's model or William Bridges' model, they've always talked about three stages, right? So, I'll give you a metaphor, right? Van Gennep talks about, you're in this room that's very safe and cozy, and it's very known to you. And then you have to open the door and step into a hallway which is dark, scary, and unknown. You have to traverse that hallway, and then you
Yeah.
enter another room which is filled of potential and possibility, right?
Yeah.
So different people have called it different stages, but pretty
Yeah.
much there is, the end of something. There is the middle. There's like this neutral zone where you're trying to process what's happening, and then they say there is this new beginning, right? So Bruce Feiler, and this book is a must read for people if you're going through a transition. This book is called Life is in the Transitions. It's a fantastic, insightful read. So he calls it, the long goodbye, the messy middle, and a new beginning, you know. But one thing I really like about what Filer talks about, and that kind of aligns very nicely with my own experience in transitions coaching, is that it is not linear. It does not follow one stage after another. It's not a prescribed, you do this, then you handle the messy middle, then you get. It's not like that at all. See, the thing is that, life itself, if you see, is not linear. Life does not go through, we were always told in psychology that you have these stages that you go through when you're in your 20s. It's about fun and friends and
Yeah.
freedom. Your 30s is about marriage and parenting. Your 40s is about settling down, stability, career, and 60s is about spirituality, right? But having that kind of a framework is very limiting.
Yeah.
And not only is it limiting, it is also not our experience today, right? The world as it is, we know, we're finding tremendous freedom across the stages, right? So we know homemakers who go and join college in their mid 30s. We have people who start up organizations in their 50s, people who get married in their 40s. we've had people who choose to have their children early on and then focus 20-30 years in their careers. So we're seeing that life happens out of order, right?
Yeah.
And so do transitions. Transitions also need not follow that 3-step process. So when I do transitions coaching, I tell them, hey, you know what? There are these 3 broad concepts or dimensions that, in my experience, usually involve transitions, right? That's probably what you're going through. One is there is closure, right? Another concept is chaos and confusion, and the third concept is creation, right? So this is what I call 3 C's. So I don't look at it as a linear, step by step stage or a process that people go through. They could be dealing with one or two or all three at the same time. It's like a khichdi, or it could be something else. So I ask them, hey, which of this is relevant for us to talk about? Which of this should we address first? I hope that makes sense. If
It's very beautifully explained, Rajeshwari. And I mean, so there is a sort of a process, right? It might be a mixture of different things, but yes, in a higher scheme of things, it looks like there is a process to it, right? While the
yeah,
steps might
there is
be,
a yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
So the thing is that we find that at some point of the other, people invariably, when they find final closure, they've pretty
yeah,
much touched upon these 3 aspects,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
how long each of those stages lasts is very dependent person to person, right? So we know people
yeah,
who say if they're leaving a job that they really hate, there is no long goodbye, there's no messy
yeah,
middle, there's just overnight they've switched and they're looking
yeah,
forward with hope and optimism. There are
right,
people who've gotten married, remarried, but they're caught in a very messy custody battle. So that messy middle, you're still processing, even
yeah,
though you're very happy and you've started a new life.
yeah,
So it really depends on each person's life situation, what it
yeah,
is that they are going through.
yeah,
But invariably, a
right.
fully closed transition is something that would kind of handle all these 3. Yeah.
Correct, correct. So now coming to the main point, as we always do. So how do we manage them? I mean, how do we manage? I mean, can we manage it? Can we control it, or do we just have to go through it? What's the right way?
Yeah, good question. So I think one thing before I get into the steps or tips or what we could do, the first thing that I always tell my clients, right? Um, this is irrespective of whether you're going through a transition or not, is self-care, right? Physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually. Even before you hit a transition, you want to build emotional buffer. The last thing you want when you're getting into a transition is to come at it from a place of being depleted or drained. That's the last thing you want, because it's going to take so much of emotional energy, because already there's so much that life throws at us, right? Everyday challenges. Living without a transition itself is a challenge for women,
Correct.
right? Navigating every day is a challenge. On top of this, life throws you a monster curveball and says, handle this also, right? So
Yeah,
that's the first thing, right? And so elements of that come into the, say, let's take the 3C concept, right? What are things I can do to let go? There's that, the closure piece. Then there is that, that chaos and confusion piece. How do I process what's happening to me, my emotion? How do I find meaning? How do I move finally to acceptance and integration, right? So that's that. There's a second part of things that we can do. And the third, finally, the final thing is, what can you create? What can you, what's the new life you're going to craft? Then it's about what do you want to fill that life with, right? What kind of people, what kind of habits, what skill sets, what new hobby are you going to take up, right? And for a lot of women, sometimes it could even be a symbol again. Like, I know women who get a small tattoo, saying that this is the new me, or change their hairstyle, or change the way they dress, or change certain habits, or take up new hobbies. So, it's actually a very interesting time of creation. We use a lot of our creative resources there, because you're pretty much giving birth to sometimes almost like a new self with new beliefs and a new lifestyle and all of that. So it's almost like being reborn. So that's the fun part. So that's broadly it, Divya. The letting go, the processing, and the creation, different things
Beautiful.
that we could do.
Very, very beautifully explained. And the way you kind of encapsulated such a deep concept in a short, concise way, in the sense you explain the full circle to us, how it starts and really what the closure is. And I love the way how both the starting and the ending were so positive, so that's really what I liked. At the end of it, there is a ray of light ahead, and you explained that very beautifully. Thank you so much, Rajeshwari. I mean, I think there is a lot to be learned here, and we'd love it if you can, help the women on our platform to be able to navigate, these situations in the positive light that you have, shown for us. We'd love it if you can come back and encourage more women to have the same confidence and belief in themselves like what you exhibited today.
Absolutely, I would love to. Thanks so much, Divya.
Thank you so much, Rajeshwari. Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
thanks.
Yeah, bye bye.
Thank you, Rajeshwari and
Thanks, yeah.
Divya. Lovely listening to you, Rajeshwari. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Thanks,
Thank you.
Rajshri. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. It's been really lovely being here.
Let's make this world a happier place, one woman at a